Between 2300 and 2000 BCE, trade and conquest linked distant regions into a connected world. Cities in West Asia, Iran, and South Asia demanded metals, gems, wood, leather, animals, and slaves, driving interregional trade. Powerful regional centers formed alliances and extended their influence, while tribal cultures on the fringes were eventually drawn in. By 1500 BCE, steppe warriors skilled in chariot warfare established the Mitanni dynasty in northern Syria, showing the growing impact of steppe cultures on West Asian politics. In 2350 BCE, Sargon of Akkad united Mesopotamia and northern Syria into the First Empire, lasting about 170 years. Akkad traded with western and central Iran, occasionally using military force. Horses, then rare in Mesopotamia, began appearing in art, acquired from Elamite chiefs in Iran. The Elamites, who spoke a now extinct language, lived in walled cities across western Iran. Further east, the Harappan civilization in the Indus Valley traded metals and luxury goods with Mesopotamia, possibly via ships along the Persian Gulf. Climate change weakened Akkad, leading to its fall in 2170 BCE, when Kushan tribes from western Iran overran the city. The Ur III dynasty, between 2100 and 2000 BCE, briefly restored Sumerian rule before falling to Elamite and Shamashki alliances. Between 2000 and 1700 BCE, Elamite rulers controlled Mesopotamian politics. Meanwhile, the Sintashta culture in the steppes, known for metalwork and chariot warfare, emerged. Chariots with spoked wheels soon appeared in Anatolia, possibly influenced by steppe warriors. Tin, essential for making bronze, had unclear sources. Ancient records suggest it came from Elam, and possibly the Indus Valley. One known tin source was the Zarafshan Valley in Central Asia, home to Sarazm, a trade hub since 3500 BCE. This region may have linked steppe cultures, Iran, and Mesopotamia in the trade of metals and horses. Around 2100 BCE, the first king of the third dynasty of Ur in southern Mesopotamia expelled the Gudians and restored Sumerian rule. This period, known as the Ur III period, was the last time Sumerian was used in royal administration. The Ur III kings engaged in constant warfare with Elamite city-states in Iran, occasionally negotiating peace through diplomacy and marriage alliances. King Shusin of Ur even claimed to have conquered a route through Elam, reaching the Caspian Sea. During this time, horse remains first appeared at key Iranian sites such as Malyan and Godin Tepe. Evidence of bit wear on horse and mule teeth at Malyan suggests the use of hard bits, a new method of controlling equids in Iran, different from earlier Mesopotamian lip and nose rings. Horses were also introduced into Mesopotamian cities during this period, where they were considered exotic and even used for royal entertainment, but not yet for chariots. Instead, Sumerians used battle wagons pulled by smaller equids such as asses and onager hybrids, likely to breed stronger mules. Sumerians admired horses for their arched neck pride, as seen in King Shulgi's inscriptions, comparing himself to a horse. The first known depictions of horses in Mesopotamia show men riding them, though not in chariots. Around 2000 BCE, the Elamites and their Shamashki allies defeated the last Ur III king, Ibbi-Sin, and took control of Mesopotamia. Between 2000 and 1700 BCE, Elamite and Shamashkian rulers gained power, controlling trade routes for valuable resources like lapis lazuli, copper, tin, and horses. Around the same time, the Sintashta culture emerged in the Ural Tobol steppes, possibly playing a role in Mesopotamian conflicts. The Sintashta culture, flourishing in the steppes of modern-day Russia and Kazakhstan, stands as a cornerstone of Bronze Age innovation. Renowned for its advancements in metallurgy and the earliest known chariots, this culture played a pivotal role in shaping ancient warfare and trade. Their fortified settlements and richly adorned burial mounds or kurgans reveal a society steeped in ritual, hierarchy, and technological ingenuity, often linked to the origins of Indo-Aryan traditions. The Sintashta people bridged the gap between ancient innovation and enduring cultural legacies, leaving an indelible mark on human history. Sintashta, located east of the Ural Mountains in the northern steppes, was a fortified circular town dating back to around 2100 to 1800 BC. It measured 140 meters in diameter and was surrounded by timber-reinforced earthen walls with gate towers and a V-shaped ditch for defense. While erosion from the Sintashta River damaged part of the site, remains of 31 houses, likely up to 60 originally, and evidence of extensive metallurgical activity were found, making it an early industrial hub for copper and bronze production. Sintashta's fortifications were unlike anything previously seen in the steppes. Earlier fortified settlements existed west of the Don during the Yamnaya period, but Sintashta's walls, gates, and housing were far more advanced. This points to a significant shift in steppe society, possibly due to the emergence of new threats or the need to protect valuable resources. Outside the settlement, 5 burial complexes revealed astonishing finds, including the oldest known chariots with spoked wheels. These graves contained horses, weaponry, chariots, and items like copper and bronze tools, but little jewelry, emphasizing the culture's focus on warfare and technology. The graves showed parallels with rituals described in the Rig Veda, suggesting cultural links to early Indo-European peoples. Dating the site revealed a mix of results, ranging from 2800 BC to 1600 BC. This suggests an earlier Poltavka culture component at Sintashta. However, consistent dates for the main phase of the settlement align with other similar sites like Archaeum and related graves in the Middle Volga region, further clarifying the timeline. The Sintashta culture, including related sites like Archaeum, raised important questions. Why did these heavily fortified, metal-producing towns emerge in this region? What drove the demand for copper and bronze? Did the people here invent chariots? And could they be the ancestors of those who composed ancient texts like the Rig Veda and Avesta? The site has since become a focal point for studying early steppe civilizations and their connection to broader Indo-European history. The origins of the Sintashta culture can be traced to the cultural interactions in the Tripoli region between the Dniester and Dnieper rivers between 2800 and 2600 BC. This area became a dynamic meeting point for the corded ware, globular amphorae, and Yamnaya populations, leading to the emergence of a mosaic of regional cultures in the forest steppe zone. Forest steppe primarily occurs in a belt of forest steppes across northern Eurasia, from the eastern lowlands of Europe to eastern Siberia in northeast Asia. It forms transition ecoregions between the temperate grasslands and temperate broadleaf and mixed forests biomes. Much of Russia belongs to the forest steppe zone, which stretches from central Russia across Volga, Ural, Siberian, and Far East Russia. The Yamnaya groups, known for their kurgan, burial mound cemeteries, moved north into the forest steppe along the Dniester, South Bug, and Dnieper River valleys, spreading their pastoralist traditions. Meanwhile, globular amphorae groups from the eastern Carpathians expanded eastward into the Kiev region, but eventually retreated westward, allowing corded ware groups from southern Poland to replace them. The corded ware culture represents a fusion of steppe traditions and local Neolithic practices, and genetic studies reveal significant steppe ancestry in corded ware populations. These migrations and cultural exchanges gave rise to the Middle Dnieper culture, a blend of influences from Yamnia, globular amphorae, and corded ware. Centered around Kiev, this culture was the first to introduce food production and herding into the forest regions north of Kiev. The Middle Dnieper culture developed a distinctive mix of traditions, evident in its pottery, burial practices, and tools, including flint arrowheads, stone battle axes, and trapezoidal axes. The Middle Dnieper culture expanded into the forests of modern Belarus, following river valleys and open areas that provided resources for their cattle, sheep, and pigs. Their burial customs included both kurgans and flat graves, reflecting influences from multiple cultural traditions. Over time, these developments in the Middle Dnieper region set the stage for the eastward movement of cultural traits and practices that eventually contributed to the formation of the Sintashta culture in the Ural steppes. The Fatyanovo culture, emerging at the northeastern edge of the Middle Dnieper culture, marked a significant expansion into the forested regions of the Upper Volga basin, This culture developed as cattle herders moved from the south-flowing Dnieper drainage into the north-flowing rivers like the Oka, which traversed pine oak birch forests. While Fatyanovo pottery retained mixed traits from corded ware and globular amphorae, it represented a distinct development derived from an early variant of the Middle Dnieper culture. The Fatyanovo people expanded across the upper Volga region, establishing numerous flat grave cemeteries near rivers and marshes while displacing the indigenous Volosovo foragers, whose distinct pottery and customs disappeared with this migration. The Fatyanovo migrations overlapped regions historically associated with Baltic-speaking populations, as shown by ancient place names in the Dnieper and Volga basins. This indicates that Fatyanovo groups likely contributed to forming pre-Baltic-speaking communities in the upper Volga. Meanwhile, pre-Slavic dialects developed among Middle Dnieper populations, who stayed closer to the Dnieper and Nestor rivers. Additionally, as the Fatyanovo groups expanded eastward into the Volga-Kama region, they discovered and exploited copper ores, transforming this area into a metallurgical hub. This eastern extension, known as the Balanovo culture, became the settled metalworking facet of Fatyanovo society. At the southern fringe of Balanovo territory, a new culture, the Abashevo culture, emerged in the forest steppe regions of the Middle Volga and Upper Don around 2500 BC. The Abashevo culture blended influences from Fatyanovo, Balanovo corded ware traditions, and steppe cultures like Catacomb and Poltavka, evident in their ceramics, burial customs, and metallurgy. Unlike Fatyanovo flat cemeteries, Abashevo graves were covered by kurgans surrounded by ditches, showcasing steppe influences. Their metallurgy, particularly in copper and arsenical bronze, was advanced, with tools and ornaments produced from Ural ores. The people of the Abashevo culture mined arsenic-rich copper ores in the Ural Tobol region and established small settlements in the upper Ural River Valley and possibly the upper Tobol. Abashevo pottery from this region introduced geometric meander designs, which later became a key motif in Sintashta pottery. Early Sintashta graves sometimes contained Abashevo pots, and late Abashevo sites occasionally featured Sintashta-style weapons and chariot parts. However, Abashevo settlements were not heavily fortified, and their customs, such as limited animal sacrifices and distinct metalwork styles, differed from Sintashta practices. Before Sintashta, the Poltavka culture occupied the northern steppe zone between the Volga and Ural rivers, continuing the traditions of the earlier Yamnaya Horizon. Poltavka groups expanded eastward into the Ural Tobol steppes between 2800 and 2600 BC. Their pottery, decorated with vertical chevrons, heavily influenced Sintashta ceramics. Evidence of Poltavka presence includes a cemetery near the future site of Archaeum, and traces of a settlement beneath the Sintashta site of Quisak. These suggest that Poltavka herders laid the groundwork for Sintashta development, although Poltavka settlements were typically smaller and less complex. The Potapovka culture, contemporary with Sintashta between 2100 to 1800 BC, occupied the Middle Volga region and shared similarities with Sintashta in burial practices, metal tools, weapons, horse sacrifices, and chariot-related artifacts. Potapovka pottery retained Poltavka designs, and their graves were often built atop older Poltavka burial sites. This deliberate overlap symbolically connected Potapovka communities with Poltavka ancestry, similar to how Sintashta settlements incorporated earlier Poltavka sites. Poltavka herders may have ventured across the expansive Kazakh plains towards Sarazm, a Central Asian urban center established before 3000 BC near modern Samarkand. By 2500 BC, herders pushing east of the Urals likely reached areas close to Sarazm, extending their range into Central Asia. These interactions foreshadowed the complex cultural and technological exchanges that shaped the Sintashta culture. The Abashevo culture played a crucial role in the origin of the Sintashta culture. Its settlements extended to the southwestern Urals, where metallurgical activities flourished. Some indigenous Volosovo foragers were absorbed into Abashevo society, and their contact helped spread cattle breeding and metallurgical knowledge into neighboring cultures. Abashevo's fortified settlements, The increasing sophistication of their metalwork and their ceremonial burial practices set the foundation for later developments in Sintashta. The Abashivo culture thus served as a bridge, transferring steppe customs and technologies northward while contributing to the cultural and technological developments that culminated in the Sintashta culture. Ancient human genetics reveals a strong genetic link between the Sintashta people and the corded ware culture of Central Europe, suggesting that the Sintashta likely originated from eastward migrations of corded ware populations. This shared ancestry indicates a significant movement of people and ideas, shaping the genetic and cultural landscapes of the Bronze Age. Genetic analysis shows that the Sintashta population was not homogeneous. Most individuals carried a mix of ancestry from the Yamnaya culture and Central European Middle Neolithic populations, such as the globular amphora culture. However, some individuals showed affinities with older groups, like the Neolithic Kvalans population and Siberian hunter-gatherers, suggesting that Sintashta settlements, particularly at sites like Kamenyi Ambar, were cosmopolitan, bringing together diverse groups in a shared social system. The Sintashta people also played a pivotal role in the development and spread of domesticated horses. Genetic studies reveal that they contributed to the dispersal of the Dam-2 genetic lineage, the ancestor of all modern domesticated horses. These horses were selectively bred for traits like docility, endurance, and the ability to carry heavier loads, innovations that revolutionized transportation and warfare. Additionally, mitochondrial DNA analysis of Sintashta individuals showed a variety of maternal lineages, with subclades of U being predominant, alongside others like J, T, H, and K. Male Y DNA analysis revealed that most carried R1A subclades, further highlighting their close genetic relationship to other Indo-European cultures, including the Andronovo and Srubnaya cultures. A cooler, more arid climate affected the Eurasian steppe starting around 2500 BC, peaking in intensity between 2200 and 2000 BC. This Little Ice Age led to ecological changes like forest decline, the expansion of steppes and deserts, and harsher winters. Evidence of this is found in pollen studies across a vast region, from western Russia and the Pontic steppes to Siberia and even as far as India and East Africa. During the late Middle Bronze Age, between 2500 and 2000 BC, the pastoral steppe cultures transitioned from mobile lifestyles characterized by kurgan burials to more sedentary settlements. Increased competition for shrinking resources, particularly winter fodder for animals, likely drove this shift. Settlements were strategically built near marshy areas that provided essential resources like reeds for fodder and materials. Even though these locations were less defensible, this defensive yet resource-driven settlement pattern reflects a response to environmental pressures, where securing key resources became paramount. By about 2100 BC, herders from the Poltavka and Abashivo cultures began building fortified settlements in the Ural Tobol region. These settlements were located near marshy areas because marshlands were critical for their herds during the harsh winters. Marshes provided forage and protection with their tall reeds. However, as resources became scarce, competition for these valuable spots increased. More than 20 walled Sintashta settlements were constructed between 2100 and 1800 BC. The heavy fortifications, including walls and towers, showed that simply living near marshes wasn't enough to protect them. Raiding between rival groups was common, leading to the need for strong defenses. Frequent conflict among tribes led to the development of advanced warfare strategies, including the invention of the light war chariot. This new technology became a game-changer in battle. Sintashta communities also held elaborate funerals near their fortified settlements. These ceremonies were highly competitive, with rival groups trying to outdo each other through grand displays. For example, entire chariots and horses were sacrificed during these rituals, demonstrating their wealth and power. The Sintashta culture emerged at the eastern edge of the Pontic-Caspian steppe, where its geographic location exposed it to diverse influences, from nomadic foragers to advanced urban civilizations. These interactions, especially with urban centers like the Bactria Marjana archaeological complex in Central Asia, played a significant role in shaping Sintashta society, particularly in areas like trade, warfare, and metal production. Metal production became a defining feature of Sintashta settlements. They acted as industrial hubs, processing vast amounts of copper ore into tools, weapons, and other objects. Excavations at sites like Sintashta, Archaeum, and Uste have revealed smelting ovens, slag, and molds for casting metal items. The primary material used was arsenical bronze, while pure copper and tin bronze were less common. Mining operations in the region, such as at Vorovskaya Yama, extracted thousands of tons of copper ore, underscoring the scale of this industry. Warfare played a significant role in driving social and political changes, especially in ancient times. The threat of conflict often led to the collapse of old social orders and the rise of new power structures. In tribal societies, warfare did not involve debt, but tribute in the form of men and resources. Leaders were expected to reward their followers in proportion to the scale of their victories, often through gifts of valuables or resources. As warfare intensified, it contributed to the formation of state-like structures. In some areas, the creation of permanent armies and elite bodyguards marked the shift from tribal groups to more organized societies. This shift was further facilitated by the increased scale of long-distance trade, where valuable goods became important in forming alliances and maintaining power. In the southern Urals, warfare escalated during the Late Bronze Age, particularly among the Abashevo culture. Evidence of mass graves with decapitated bodies and signs of battle points to large-scale conflict. The mass graves like the one at Pepkino, where numerous men were buried following violent deaths under a single mound. This warfare, combined with the signaling of identity through elite artifacts like headbands adorned with copper and silver, highlights the politically charged environment of the time. This period saw a rise in the production of copper and other valuables, which were used both for personal adornment and in the context of feasts or as tribute. The Sintashta culture, which followed the Abashevo, expanded upon this trend. Sintashta societies incorporated new elements like fortified settlements, large-scale metal production, and chariot warfare. The increased scale of metalwork and animal sacrifices signified the growing importance of status and the need to secure alliances. Trade with Central Asia introduced new goods and opportunities for prestige among steppe chiefs. Connections with trading hubs like Sarazm in the Zaravashan Valley were initially driven by old rivalries between tribes, but eventually transformed Sintashta society. This exchange influenced warfare, rituals, and the production of metal, highlighting the critical role of trade and external influences in shaping the culture. The Sintashta culture experienced a significant increase in warfare, evident through three key developments: fortified towns, more weapons and graves, and the invention of new weapons and tactics. Almost all Sintashta settlements, whether large or small, were heavily fortified with features like V-shaped ditches, earthen walls reinforced with timber, and wooden palisades. These fortifications suggest that communities feared attacks and prepared extensively to defend themselves. Weapons became much more common in Sintashta graves compared to earlier cultures. Archaeologists found that more than half of the adult graves in Sintashta cemeteries contained weapons, such as daggers, axes, spears, and stone or bone projectile points. In earlier cultures like Poltavka or Abashevo, graves rarely included weapons, and even when they did, it was usually just a single item. The high frequency of weapons in Sintashta graves, 54%, highlights the culture's focus on warfare and the role of men as warriors. New weapon designs also appeared during this time. Heavier spearheads made of bronze or copper were introduced, alongside new types of flint projectile points. Some flint points were long and narrow, with a thick ridge, designed for javelins, as they could withstand the impact force and penetrate deeply without breaking. These points were often found in groups, suggesting they were part of a warrior's battle kit. One of the most significant innovations of the Sintashta culture was the light, horse-drawn chariot. Though it is debated, the chariot is seen as a game-changing weapon in ancient warfare. It allowed for faster movement and more effective combat, further emphasizing the Sintashta culture's advancements in military tactics and technology. A chariot, a sleek two-wheeled vehicle pulled by horses, represents a marvel of ancient engineering. Unlike the heavy carts used for transporting goods, chariots were designed for speed and agility, equipped with lightweight wooden frames and revolutionary spoked wheels. These wheels, crafted with precision carpentry, marked a significant leap in mobility. Early chariots may have been used in funeral races, but they quickly evolved into formidable tools of war, redefining land transportation and combat. The origins of chariots are often traced to the Near East, around 1900 to 1800 BC. For a long time, scholars assumed that the steppe chariots of the Sintashta culture were late imitations of these designs. However, archaeological discoveries have painted a different picture. In the steppe regions, chariot burials, graves preserving impressions of wooden wheels, date as far back as 2000 BC, making them among the earliest known chariot users. These chariots, featuring spoked wheels 1 to 1.2 meters in diameter with 10 to 12 spokes, were buried alongside weapons, hinting at their role in warfare. There has been debate about whether steppe chariots were practical for combat or primarily ceremonial. Critics argue that their narrower gauges, compared to the broader Near Eastern war chariots, might have limited their battlefield utility. However, evidence tells a different story. Many Sintashta and Petrovka chariots had a width of 1.4 to 1.6 meters, wide enough for a crew of 2, comparable to Egyptian war chariots. These chariots were buried with weapons like daggers, axes, and javelins, strongly indicating their use in combat. Steppe chariots offered distinct advantages in battle, particularly with javelin warfare. A charioteer could drive with one hand while hurling javelins with the other, using their body to generate more force than a mounted rider without stirrups. This tactic allowed the charioteer to strike an enemy before they could respond, creating a decisive advantage. Additionally, chariots could carry multiple javelins, ensuring a continuous offensive capability. Archery was another potential use. Steppe charioteers could tie the reins around their hips for hands-free driving, allowing them to shoot arrows with precision while in motion, an advantage over mounted archers, who needed one hand to control their horses. This combination of speed, mobility, and firepower made the chariot a versatile and lethal weapon. The development of advanced horse bridles further highlights the chariot's combat effectiveness. Cheek pieces made from antler or bone was specifically designed to control horses with precision, enabling swift turns and coordinated maneuvers. This innovation, unique to the steppe, underscores the chariot's functionality as a battlefield vehicle. The weapons and tools buried alongside these chariots provide the ultimate proof of their warlike purpose. The graves often contain male skeletons, presumably the warriors who drove and fought from these chariots. If the vehicles were purely ceremonial, such weapons and elaborate horse control devices would not have been necessary. Steppe chariots were not just ceremonial symbols, but highly practical instruments of warfare. Their ability to carry javelin throwers and archers, their advanced design for maneuverability, and the weapons buried with them all point to their vital role in Bronze Age battles. These chariots stand as a testament to the ingenuity of steppe cultures, marking a pivotal moment in the history of warfare and technology. The funerals of Sintashta chiefs were grand events, involving poetry and feasting. These funerals were more than just ceremonies. They were powerful displays of status and hierarchy. The anthropologist described such ceremonies as tournaments of value, where the elite showcased their power and defined their place in society. These events also helped to channel political competition in a way that excluded most people from participating. The everyday diet of the Sintashta people was mainly low in starch. There's evidence they ate few cereals, and they likely supplemented their diet with wild seeds and some millet. Their graves suggest that animal sacrifices were a big part of their funerals. For example, one burial site, Sacrificial Complex 1, included the remains of several animals like horses, cattle, and rams, which would have fed thousands of funeral guests. These sacrifices were likely intended to honor the deceased, providing food for the guests rather than just for work crews building burial mounds. Horses played a major role in Sintashta funeral sacrifices. While cattle were the main source of meat in their diet, horses were sacrificed more than any other animal during funerals, symbolizing the importance of horses in their culture. The graves of individuals with multiple horse sacrifices often contained weapons, showing that the people who owned many horses were likely warriors. This connection between horses, feasts, and weapons suggests that these people were elite and held significant power. However, Sintashta graves did not contain much jewelry or large homes. and there were no signs of specialized crafts except for metallurgy, which suggests that their social hierarchy was not as obvious as it might seem. The graves mostly honored a small number of families, often including children, but they were reserved for the elite, like those who had horses, chariots, and weapons. These grand funerals were not for everyone, but were reserved for a select few. The funeral rituals of the Sintashta culture are important because they closely resemble the rituals described in the Rig Veda, the oldest surviving text in an Indo-Iranian language. These funerals, with their animal sacrifices and lavish feasts, reflect the values and social structures of the time. The origins of the Aryans, as described in the Rig Veda and the Avesta, are deeply linked to the Sintashta culture. The earliest texts in Old Indic, like the family books of the Rig Veda, were compiled around 1500 to 1300 BC, while the oldest parts of the Avesta were written by Zarathustra around 1200 to 1000 BC. Both texts shared common roots in a language called Indo-Aryan, spoken well before 1500 BC, likely during the Sintashta period, between 2100 to 1800 BC. This suggests that the Sintashta people played a significant role in the formation of Indo-Iranian identity and language. The Rig Veda and Avesta both emphasize that being an Aryan was about performing rituals and speaking the right language, not about race. The rituals focused on the proper way to sacrifice to the gods and uphold cosmic order. The Rig Veda describes rituals and practices that match archaeological evidence from Sintashta, such as burial customs and horse sacrifices. For instance, both the Rig Veda and Sintashta graves feature overturned pots and horse sacrifices, which were performed in a specific pattern and often involved public feasting. The Sintashta culture introduced significant innovations in rituals, politics, and warfare, which influenced later Eurasian cultures. These practices included chariot use, new weaponry, and large-scale funeral feasts. The Sintashta people also practiced a midwinter New Year's sacrifice, involving dogs, which is reflected in the Rig Veda as accounts of warrior initiation rituals. Archaeological findings at Srubnaya settlements show evidence of such dog sacrifices, with dog remains carefully butchered during the winter solstice. Although Sintashta settlements do not show direct evidence of these rituals, many Sintashta graves contain necklaces made from dog teeth, suggesting their importance in initiation ceremonies. The Sintashta culture spread its innovations across the Eurasian steppes, influencing other cultures like the Andronovo and Srubnaya. These cultural and ritual practices shaped the later Iranian and Vedic Aryans, who would become central figures in history. The Sintashta's technological and social advancements, such as chariotry and metallurgy, had a lasting impact across the Eurasian continent, reaching from Siberia to southeastern Europe and even influencing the ancient civilizations of Asia. By 2000 BCE, Sarrazm and nearby settlements were abandoned as steppe people, linked to the Andronovo culture, began mining tin in the Zarafshan region. This influx of steppe traders and miners may have connected Central Asia to the urban centers of Mesopotamia, intensifying copper production in Sintashta and increasing the movement of horses into Iran and Mesopotamia around 2100 BCE. The Bactria and Marjana archaeological complex, also known as the Oxus civilization, was a significant Bronze Age culture spanning present-day northern Afghanistan, Turkmenistan, Uzbekistan, and parts of Iran. The civilization's name comes from ancient Greek references to Bactria, northern Afghanistan, and Margiana, southeastern Turkmenistan. Some scholars prefer the term Oxus civilization, named after the Amu Darya River. Around 2100 BCE, a large group of people settled in the Murghab River Delta, north of the Iranian plateau. The Murghab River, originating from western Afghanistan, created a fertile oasis known as Margiana. These settlers, likely fleeing conflicts or seeking better water sources, built walled towns, temples, and palaces in the Middle Bronze Age. Anthropological studies suggest they came from the Iranian plateau, bringing pottery styles from the Kopet Dag region. Between 2000 and 1800 BCE, the late Bronze Age civilization flourished, expanding to ancient Bactria, Upper Amu Darya Valley. This led to the development of the Bactria-Margiana archaeological complex, known for its walled cities, citadels, and advanced trade networks. These towns had strong yellow brick walls, palaces, and temples. Major sites included Gonur, Togolok, Sapali Tepe, Dashli III, and Jarkutan. The rulers traded with Mesopotamia, Elam, Harappa, and the Arabian Gulf. The artifacts such as steatite jars, crested axes, and seals were found across the Iranian plateau, Baluchistan, and the Arabian Gulf, indicating strong trade and cultural exchange. Beadmakers used materials like shells from the Indian Ocean and Mediterranean, along with lapis lazuli, turquoise, silver, and gold. Metalworking in the region was advanced. Early settlers used copper, arsenical bronze, and copper-lead alloys. By 2000 BCE, tin bronze became common in Bactria, likely sourced from Zarafshan. Rising metal demand in the steppes reshaped northern steppe societies. Horses were absent in early Central Asia, though wild onagers existed. Domesticated horses arrived via steppe trade. Early graves contained horse-related artifacts, such as a bronze horse head decoration and a foal sacrifice at Gonur North, suggesting horses were initially status symbols. By 1900 BCE, demand rose due to chariot use in Iran and the Near East. Steppe influences appeared in pottery, particularly at Gonur North, where some sherds resembled Sintashta-style ceramics. Similar pottery at the Karnab tin mining camp suggests early interactions with the steppe. Between 2000 and 1800 BCE, steppe pottery, including Sintashta and Andronovo styles, appeared at several Bactria-Mariana sites like Togolok and Jarkutan. The Petrovka culture, an eastern Sintashta offshoot, settled at Tugay in the Zarafshan Valley near Sarazm. These settlers built smelting ovens, introduced distinctive pottery, and migrated with wagons carrying possessions. Talc-tempered pottery at Tugay suggests Ural steppe connections. A grave at Zarja Khalifa near Sarazm contained Bactria-Marjana-style ceramics, gold jewelry, and horse-related artifacts. The presence of the earliest known metal bits and Sintashta-style cheek pieces suggests steppe chariot influences on Central Asian civilizations, impacting trade and warfare. The trade network was extensive. Textiles, metal objects, and decorative motifs appeared in steppe settlements. The stepped pyramid motif, common in Bactria-Marjana art, emerged in Sintashta and Petrovka pottery, possibly inspired by Bactria-Marjana textiles. Imports included lapis lazuli, lead, and Bactrian bronze mirrors, showing reciprocal trade. In the post-urban phase, 1700 to 1500 BCE, settlements were abandoned and the culture declined, likely due to climate change with the Indo-Aryan speaking groups possibly taking control. The region played a key role in early Indo-Iranian exchanges. The Srubnaya culture between 1800 to 1200 BCE spread from the Urals to the Dnieper River, marking a return to permanent settlements in the northern steppes. Unlike earlier mobile groups, Srubnaya people lived in small homesteads and family ranches rather than fortified villages. In the Samara region, herding was localized. Excavations in the Pashani Dol Valley show larger camps near settlements, with smaller ones further upstream. While agriculture was practiced west of the Don, studies in the Samara Valley show a diet based on meat, milk, and gathered wild plants, no grains. Some believe climate change between 2500 to 2000 BCE forced steppe herders to secure winter grazing areas, leading to permanent settlements like Sintashta and Archaeum. Others formed near copper mines, fueling the growing bronze industry. Large mining centers like Kargali, South Urals, and Karaganda, Kazakhstan, supported trade and local economies. An offshoot of Sintashta, the Petrovka culture between 1900 to 1750 BCE shared burial practices but had distinct ceramics. The earliest sites, like Petrovka in northern Kazakhstan, were nucleated villages with tightly packed houses. Early Petrovka graves contained chariots and cheek pieces, but over time, such burials declined, sacrifices became smaller, and large fortifications disappeared. This marked a shift from Sintashta traditions. Petrovka sites spread south into Kazakhstan, and as far as Tugay on the Zarafshan River, 1,200 kilometers away. Unlike later nomads, Petrovka people lived in permanent villages, moving south for trade, conquest, or resources. Petrovka settlements had furnaces and copper smelting, but they advanced to tin-bronze production, likely sourcing tin from the Zarevshan Valley or Altai Mountains, pushing late Bronze Age metalworking forward. Forest and forest steppe societies like Seima-Turbino, despite relying on hunting and fishing, produced some of the finest tin-bronze weapons. Their metallurgy thrived in the Altai foothills, rich in tin, copper, and gold. A key site, the Rostovka Cemetery, contained 38 graves, some empty, possibly for ritual use. Weapons included tin-bronze socketed spearheads, curved knives, and hollow-core bronze axes. Exotic trade items like lapis lazuli from Afghanistan and nephrite from Baikal suggest vast trade networks. Seima-Turbino wasn't a single culture, but a movement of metallurgical innovation. Its weapons spread west to Moldova and the East Carpathians, and east into China via Dzungaria. Previously linked to Mycenaean tombs, after 1650 BCE, new evidence shows Mycenaean socketed spearheads came from the east, not the other way around. Seima-Turbino likely emerged before 1900 BCE, influencing Andronovo and beyond. The Andronovo Horizon, between 1800 and 1200 BCE, was the main late Bronze Age culture in the eastern steppes, stretching from the Ural Mountains to the Yenisei River and from the southern forest zone to the Amu Darya River. It was closely related to the Shrubnaya culture west of the Urals. The two major subgroups of Andronovo were Alakul and Fedorovo, with Alakul emerging first, around 1900 to 1800 BCE, as a continuation of the Petrovka culture. Fedorovo likely developed as a variant of Alakul, though some scholars suggest it had independent origins. Andronovo retained many features from Sintashta and Petrovka, including small family kurgan cemeteries, compact settlements, similar weapon types, and decorative pottery motifs. Unlike Sintashta, however, chariots were no longer buried in graves. Alakul and Fedorovo coexisted in many sites, with Fedorovo typically associated with larger kurgan structures and cremation, while Alakul graves contained simple burials. Since both pottery styles often appeared in the same settlements, houses, and cemeteries, they likely represent cultural variations rather than distinct ethnic groups. The expansion of Andronovo signified the maturation of a herding-based economy. Cattle and sheep were the primary livestock, with cattle more dominant in the northern steppes and sheep more common in central Kazakhstan. Horses were also increasingly used. Permanent villages housed 50 to 250 people, with wells for water and copper smelting ovens. Although some agriculture may have existed, no direct evidence has been found. Metallurgy was highly developed, with Andronovo miners extracting tin from the Zarevshan and Upper Irtysh regions, and copper from Karaganda and Zhezkazgan. Large-scale smelting operations at sites like Atasu, one indicate organized metal production for trade. These mines produced tens of thousands of metric tons of smelted copper. Andronovo also had long-distance trade connections. Evidence of contact with Central Asia includes Namazga pottery, a fine wheel-made ceramic from Bactria, found 2,000 kilometers north in Kazakhstan at sites like Pavlovka. This suggests that trade and possibly raiding linked the steppes with the advanced civilizations of Bactria and Margiana. By 1900 BCE, Petrovka migrants began mining copper in the Zarevshan Valley at Tugay, followed by Andronovo groups mining tin at Karnab and Mushistan. By 1800 BCE, Andronovo pastoral camps and kurgan cemeteries had spread throughout the Zarevshan Valley, while others settled in the lower Amu Darya region, practicing irrigation farming. This settled farming community, known as Tazabagyab, lived in dugout houses, used Andronovo-style pottery and tools, and practiced copper smelting, but buried their dead in flat cemeteries rather than kurgans. Around 1800 BCE, the Bactria-Margiana archaeological complex declined, with its walled cities shrinking and local pottery styles diversifying. Andronovo Tazabagyab pottery began appearing both inside Bactria-Margiana fortifications and in pastoral camps outside city walls, showing increasing cultural integration. Excavations at Takerbay and Gonur found Andronovo-style dugout houses, suggesting close contact between steppe herders and Bactria-Margiana settlers. In Tajikistan, kurgan cemeteries at Vakhsh and Bishkent contained a mix of Bactria-Margiana and Andronovo Tazabagyab pottery. Between 1800 and 1600 BCE, Andronovo Tazabagyab groups gained economic and military power by controlling trade in minerals, copper, tin, turquoise, and pastoral goods, horses, dairy, leather. Their use of chariots further strengthened their dominance. Over time, their simple incised pottery was replaced by gray-polished ceramics in Margiana and Kopet Dag, and painted wares in Bactria and Tajikistan, marking deeper cultural integration. By 1600 BCE, the trading cities and fortified estates of eastern Iran and Central Asia were abandoned. The city of Malyan in Iran was reduced to a small walled compound occupied by Elamite administrators. Meanwhile, pastoral economies expanded across Iran and Baluchistan, where horse-riding imagery appeared at Perak around 1700 BCE. When the Indo-Iranians, a group of steppe people, came into contact with the Bactria-Margiana archaeological complex, they adopted certain religious rituals and terms, such as soma, a sacred drink later mentioned in the Rig Veda. As Old Indic speakers moved closer, they absorbed more words related to religion and agriculture. Over time, they migrated southward into Afghanistan and Iran, blending their steppe traditions with local customs. By 1700 to 1400 BCE, the Gandhara grave culture developed in the Swat Valley. It introduced domesticated horses to South Asia, as seen in pottery motifs and bone remains. These people had burnished pottery similar to late Bactria-Margiana ceramics and burial customs that linked them to both the Bactria-Margiana and the Andronovo cultures. Over time, they shifted from burying their dead in a flexed position to cremation, a practice introduced by the steppe nomads. The Bactria-Margiana had no written records, but its language influenced Indo-Aryan speech. Many Sanskrit words in the Rig Veda, such as kulala, potter, kilala, a milk product, and palali, straw, likely came from this language. Some names in the Rig Veda also carry non-Indo-European sounds, showing clear evidence of language contact. The Bactria-Margiana extended its influence westward to Iran, Syria, and Anatolia. Archaeological finds, such as seals and chariot imagery, confirm this expansion. Syrian and Egyptian motifs appeared on Margiana seals, and Bactrian camels were depicted in Syrian art. In northern Iran, at Tepe Hisar, between 1900 to 1750 BCE, a warrior elite thrived, with golden trumpets and chariot imagery linking the region to Bactria and Margiana. Some scholars believe that the Indo-Aryan rulers of Mitanni may have originated from this region. By the 16th century BCE, Indo-Aryans ruled the Mitanni Kingdom in Syria. Although the majority of the population spoke Hurrian, the ruling class had Indo-Aryan names and traditions. Their migration is linked to the spread of early West Iranian gray-ware pottery, which evolved from Gorgon gray-ware in Iran and Central Asia. Mitanni introduced advanced chariot warfare, which shaped military strategies in West Asia and Egypt. The word Mariani, from Sanskrit Maria, meaning noble warrior, spread across different cultures. Mitanni kings exchanged diplomatic letters with Egyptian pharaohs, often discussing chariots and horses. Several Indo-Aryan words appear in Mitanni records, especially those related to horses and chariots. A peace treaty between the Mitanni king Sadavaza and the Hittite king Suppiluliuma invoked Indo-Aryan gods, including Mitra, Varuna, Indra, and the Nasatyas, in nearly the same order as in the Rig Veda. Some Indo-Aryan deities also appeared in Hittite and Kassite records, showing a deep cultural connection. By the 13th century BCE, Mitanni fell under Hittite control, and Indo-Aryan influence faded. However, their contributions to chariot warfare, diplomacy, and language left a lasting impact on West Asia. Linguists believe that Mitanni Indo-Aryan represents an older stage of Vedic Sanskrit, preserving some features that later evolved in the Rigvedic tradition. Despite borrowing religious elements, Vedic culture remained pastoral. The Rig Veda glorified cattle, milk, and horses, rejecting agricultural offerings. Chariots were central to war and rituals, and gods were mostly male, unlike Bactria-Margiana's female deity figures. Funerary customs combined cremation, like Fedorovo graves, and inhumation, like Andronovo and Tazabagyab burials. This historical journey highlights how Indo-Aryans played a crucial role in shaping the cultures of Central and West Asia through their migrations, innovations, and interactions with the great civilizations of their time. The Old Indic culture developed in the Central Asian contact zone, absorbing influences from Bactria margiana, but maintaining its steppe pastoralist values. This fusion helped shape the language and religious traditions of the Rig Veda, which emerged around 1500 to 1300 BCE. The Eurasian steppes, once seen as a remote and resource-poor region, became a vital bridge connecting the civilizations of Greece, the Near East, Iran, India, and China during the Late Bronze Age. The spread of chariot technology, horseback riding, and bronze metallurgy gave steppe societies newfound importance, transforming them from isolated communities into key players in Eurasian trade and cultural exchange. This period saw significant technological and material exchanges across vast distances. Nephrite, jade from Lake Baikal reached the Carpathian region, while tin and horses from the steppes were traded in Iran. Bactrian pottery was discovered in Fedorovo settlements in Kazakhstan, demonstrating the deep cultural interactions between Central Asia and the steppes. Chariots, a revolutionary military innovation, appeared across the ancient world, from Greece to China, further strengthening the role of steppe societies in shaping Eurasian history. In China, the Tarim Basin cemeteries preserved mummies of white-skinned, wool-wearing people, dating back to 1800 BCE, showing evidence of steppe migrations. These exchanges indicate that early Chinese civilizations were already in contact with the West, integrating steppe innovations into their own development. By the time the first Chinese states emerged around 1800 BCE, the Srubnaya and Andronovo cultures had transformed the steppes into a corridor of communication, permanently altering the course of Eurasian history. The once isolated steppe societies became crucial links in the vast network of trade and cultural exchange that connected the great civilizations of the ancient world.